Coming up on Network Africa, 15 people killed by Codeco armed rebels in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Senegal's government says election will hold as soon as possible after the Constitutional Court overturned the delay. Plus, the head of the UN peacekeeping mission, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, visits South Sudan to assess the progress made on the upcoming elections. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. At least 15 people have been killed by armed rebels in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo's troubled Ituri province. Local sources say the Cooperative for the Development of the Congo, Codeco militia, which claims to defend the interests of the Lendu ethnic group, again targeted people from the rival Hema tribe. According to officials, Codeco fighters ambushed users of a road near the village of Tali, where they stopped 15 people, including one woman. The militiamen were said to have tied them up and undressed them before killing them, while some victims are said to have had their throats cut off, others shot dead. According to a humanitarian source, the bodies of the victims bear the marks of torture. Rufin Mapela, the territory's administrator, confirmed the death toll of 15 and said the attack came after months of peace in that region. We're still in the DRC. Thousands of people continue to flee waves of violence in eastern region as the escalating use of heavy artillery and shelling in clashes around Goma poses grave threats to civilian and displaced populations. Well, in the wake of the heightened violence last week between government forces and non-state armed groups, the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, says it is deeply concerned by the dire consequences for civilians, including an estimated 135,000 internally displaced people fleeing the town of Sake towards the nearby provincial capital, Goma. Well, there have been reports of bombs falling on civilian locations, including in Zaina State in Sake and the Lushagala site in Goma, where as many as 65,000 internally displaced people are sheltering, raising significant concerns for their safety. The agency also says the violence continues to restrict access to isolated populations in Masisi territory and in Rutshuru, and that's compounding the challenges faced by the humanitarian agencies in delivering essential assistance needed. Away from the DRC now, Senegal says it will hold a presidential election as soon as possible, given that the country's top election authority has overturned a decree by President Macky Sall to postpone the vote. According to presidential spokesperson Yoro Dia, Mr. Sall intends to ensure full compliance with the Constitutional Council's decision and also to hold elections as soon as possible, although the government didn't specify a new date. President Sall had sought to postpone the February 25 election, citing unresolved disputes over candidates, and the National Assembly voted to reschedule the election for December 15. However, the country's constitutional court ruled that those moves were unconstitutional and therefore ordered that the government hold the election soon, presumably allowing enough time for campaigning, and the panel acknowledged that the initial date of February 25 would not be feasible, but has mandated the government to act quickly. Senegal has been long seen as one of the region's most stable democracies. However, election disputes have plunged the country now into a political crisis that has sparked deadly protests and also cut mobile internet. The head of UN peacekeeping mission, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, is in South Sudan. He's there to assess progress made on the peace process in the country and also preparations underway for the upcoming elections scheduled for December. And it's the country's first since independence. Well, in Juba, he's expected to hold meetings with leaders of the Transitional Government of National Unity, civil society representatives, and other key stakeholders involved in the peace process. Mr. Lacroix is accompanied by Hannah Sewa Tete. She's the special envoy to the Secretary General for the Horn of Africa. They're meeting with the head of the UN mission in South Sudan, Nicholas Haysom.
Hello. Hi. this is an important time for South Sudan. There are challenges. There are also expectations on many fronts, and I think it's also an expression of solidarity from the UN as a whole. It's clear that the region is facing many challenges, and of course the hostilities in Sudan are having an impact on South Sudan itself. I think there are other challenges. You mentioned Abyei. I believe that other phenomena, such as the impact of climate change, are also affecting this country, and they have an impact on the situation of the civilian population.
This is an opportunity for the Under-Secretary General for Peacekeeping Operations to see one of his bigger and more effective missions, for us to introduce him to the challenges we face and the difficulties, and how we are doing to overcome those. But it's also he also has an interest in Abyei and the conflict in Warrap between the Twitch and the Nok.
In the meantime, the top UN official in South Sudan, Nicholas Haysom, says his agenda in the country is to urge all leaders to fulfill their citizens' expectations by holding timely elections and also completing the young nation's much-delayed democratic transition. Mr. Haysom is the head of the UN mission in South Sudan and was speaking to reporters during a press briefing in Juba. According to him, if South Sudanese are to head to the polls at the end of the year, critical technical security and political decisions must be taken urgently. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has arrived in Abuja after departing Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the venue of the 37th ordinary session of the Assembly of the African Union. While there, the president actively participated in the 44th ordinary session of the Executive Council, held bilateral meetings, and attended other events on the sidelines on the AU summit. Also, Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, joined other African First Ladies to affirm that closing the gender gap is not an act of charity but of justice. She was addressing the 28th General Assembly of the Organization of African First Ladies for Development, with the theme Educate Her and Transform Africa, enhancing access to health and education for the 21st century African women and girls, held in Ethiopia. While concerns over conflicts and the resurgence of coups across the African continent underscored the opening of this year's AU summit over the weekend, Moussa Faki, the chair of the African Union Commission, cited tensions over Senegal's postponed election and also the violence in Eastern Congo, Sudan, the Sahel, and Libya. He called for a revival of what he termed the spirit of African solidarity and Pan-Africanism to overcome the many challenges facing the continent of 1.3 billion people. Well, back here in Nigeria, some residents in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, have joined the protest against the current economic hardship being witnessed in the country. The protesters, who mapped at least 3 convergent points at Iwo Road, Songo, and Mokola, were seen carrying placards with different inscriptions depicting the depth of their agitations. They chanted various songs calling on the government to live up to their electoral promises and to stop the suffering across the country. Our correspondent Bukola Oriowo reports.
The harsh economic realities across Nigeria has led to protests in parts of the country to register the grievances of Nigerians who are struggling to survive. Latest entrants in this set of protests are residents of the Oyo State capital, in a peaceful protest, carrying placards and chanting songs to register their displeasure at government actions and inaction. The procession, which assembled at Mokola, moved to Sango, Bodija Market, and parts of Agodi. They are calling on the government to, as a matter of urgency, do something to ameliorate the hard economic realities being faced by many Nigerians who could barely feed. The protesters were joined by some traders at the Abuja market, showing solidarity to their cause.
People are hungry. People are dying daily of hunger. Insecurity is killing people. We just need them to help us. They should just help us. They should just look into our case and be of help to Nigerians. That's just all we need.
Section 34, 39 and 40 empowers every Nigerian to organize a peaceful assembly and to speak about the economic hardship. On this note, this is not today's own. We are starting. This is just the start. It is a continuous action. Expect protest from any angle. It must not be me. It can be you. It is everybody, because the problem does not only affect only me, neither it affects everyone.
Security was beefed up across strategic points in the state capital to ensure that the protest is not hijacked by hoodlums.
We understand that people have rights for this kind of thing, but it is our duty as law enforcement to ensure that it is not hijacked by unscrupulous and mischievous elements who might want to make criminal proceeds from this kind of situation. As you can see from Mokola, which was the starting point of this movement, the police has covered, by foot and even with vehicles, following them step by step. The command would like to let the good people of Oyo State know, particularly residents, that we have their interest at heart, and we will do all that it takes to ensure that the relative peace and tranquility in Oyo State remains as it is.
Similar protests held at Sango and Iwo Road areas within Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. They hope that the government would consider this protest and do something to reduce the suffering of Nigerian masses. Bukola Oriowo, Channels Television News.
You're watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Still ahead. Egypt denies having a refugee plan for Palestinians as the Israeli assault on Rafah looms. Please stay with us for more details. Welcome back to the program. As an Israeli assault on the southern Palestinian city of Rafah draws near, Egypt's foreign minister says his country is not drawing up any contingency plan in case of an influx of Palestinian refugees. While he was speaking at a panel of the Munich Security Conference, Minister Sameh Shoukry denied such a plan. Egypt's Sinai Peninsula borders the city of Rafah. Egypt has repeatedly warned against the forced displacement of Palestinian civilians. And 5 months into the war, Mr. Shoukry reiterates Cairo's stance of not intending to provide any safe areas or facilities should Palestinians move into Sinai. Israel's military offensive first targeted the north of the Gaza Strip, forcing over 1 million Palestinians to flee the south. The operation has since expanded, and the next stage appears to be Rafah. Israel says it would work to develop a plan to evacuate civilians in Rafah, but it is yet to make that plan public.
We will not deal with the hypothetical, and we will continue to call upon all our friends, all of those who understand the complexities and the dangers associated with it, to not only provide support by rhetoric, but to indicate clearly that there will be consequences for any form of displacement. It is not our intention to provide any safe areas or facilities, but necessarily if this was a case and a situation, we will deal with the humanity that is necessary, and we will provide the support to the innocent civilians if that was to take place. But that should not be construed as an encouragement or an acceptance for an eventuality of this nature.
Well, that's Egyptian Foreign Minister Mr. Sameh Shoukry. Well, as the crisis in Sudan continues, returnees and refugees are flocking across porous borders to neighboring South Sudan. Many have been seeking refuge in the country's Upper Nile state and are in need of urgent humanitarian aid. Well, against this complex backdrop, Anita Kiki-Gbeho, she's the newly appointed Deputy Special Representative for the UN Peacekeeping Mission and the Resident Humanitarian Coordinator for South Sudan. Well, she's conducted her maiden visit to Malakal to assess the situation firsthand.
We decided to come here to see for ourselves and to actually speak to the people and have a better understanding of what their experience has been. I have to say, what gives me hope coming here is how the community has come together with the government, international partners and donors to ensure that they can respond to the needs of people who have very concrete challenges they are facing. But I have to say, what really troubles me is I hear from colleagues that over 1,600 people are coming in every day, and we are not able to decongest these camps. So currently, there's some 9,000 people who are in a space that was meant for 2,000 people. This is unsustainable. We need to find solutions. It is not enough, but I do recognize that they have made each dollar stretch 10 times as far as it's supposed to go. But there's still more to be done.
Well, that's Anita Gbeho, the Deputy Special Rep for the UN Peacekeeping Mission in South Sudan. Let's talk transportation now. The Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu is carrying out last-minute inspection for the Red Rail Line project. Governor Sanwo-Olu, who kicked off the massive infrastructure project during his first-term administration, says test driving of the rail route will commence immediately after the inauguration by President Bola Tinubu on February 29th. He also wants traders to stop selling along the rail corridor, and anyone picked up with will be dealt with according to the law.
The Red Line Rail Project is a 37-kilometer rail route from Agbado to Marina, having 13 stations including Ikeja, Iju, Yaba, Mushin, amongst others. Is already 95% complete. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, his deputy Kadri Hamzat, the managing director of Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, as well as the Commissioner for Environment and Transportation, are here for an inspection of the Red Rail route to ensure all construction and engineering work has been completed before the February 29th inauguration date. The governor and his team moved from Obalende Ijora, insisting that clearing of shanties and the reclamation of the right-of-way for the rail project will be a continuous exercise to ensure the safety of passengers when the Red Line rail fully takes off.
The tour is for us to begin to get prepared for the eventual commissioning of the entire Red Line, train stations, and Red Line infrastructure, right? As you all know, and as we said, in 2 weeks' time or thereabout, we shall be commissioning the Red Line, by Mr. President. Thereafter, we will start a few testing, real testing after the commissioning, so that it's now fit and proper for pedestrian and for passenger use. In terms of the buildings, in terms of the tracks, in terms of the stations, they're all ready, for commissioning.
The inspection continued to Oshodi area down to Agege and terminated at the Ikeja Red Line train station, also to inspect the infrastructure. He also says all forms of trading or living beside the rail tracks would not be tolerated.
A few observations, which is some of the challenges, You've seen the amount of effort it's taking us to clear the rail tracks. And once we finish tracking, people almost go back there again. So this is also another level of warning, because we won't stop. We won't stop clearing them. So we'll go back there, and we'll also work with NRC to see if we can also wall off some of the tracks, closer to the train station, so that we can do maybe up to 300 to 500 meters of wall, real physical wall, not the little barricades that we see, not the little wire mesh. We must do so that we can keep safety of would-be passengers when they come on the platform to come and embark on the trains, and we can keep the train stations, safe and secure for everyone.
All things being equal, the Red Rail Line project will be commissioned next week Thursday by President Bola Tinubu to help ease traffic congestion in Lagos State.
To help address the issue of wrong prescription and proliferation of fake drugs in Lagos State, the State Special Advisor on Health, Dr. Kemi Ogunyemi, is making an appeal during an annual summit with heads of pharmacy units. She says pharmacists must desist from selling expired drugs and work towards providing essential medicines and services regardless of individual social and economic status.
Heads of pharmacy units in the Lagos State Public Service converge on the Lagos Island for the annual summit, which serves as a pivotal platform for stakeholders to delve into the complexities and opportunities surrounding pharmacy practice in the pursuit of universal health coverage. Policymakers, regulators, and senior government officials from the Lagos State Ministry of Health highlight areas of concern and challenges of new trends in pharmacy in healthcare delivery.
These new trends of pharmacy does not only hold the potential to enhance the quality of healthcare delivery, but also contribute to the realization of universal health coverage for all. One of the key pillars of achieving universal health coverage is ensuring access to essential medicines and pharmaceutical services for all individuals, regardless of their socio-economic status.
Lagos is one of those states that is actually pioneering what they call a drug revolving fund scheme. What we're trying to do here is how can Lagos move from a drug revolving fund scheme run by their central medical store to looking at what other states are doing, which is having that drug management agency where they can begin to do or improve on what already is existing in the system to make sure that access to quality and affordable medicine is available for every citizen living in Lagos State.
The Permanent Secretary from the State Ministry of Health, Dr. Olusegun Ogboye, is worried about issues surrounding prescription practices and emphasized the need for enhanced enforcement to combat proliferation of fake drugs and unlicensed pharmacies.
90% of the stock in some of our hospitals is coming from things they bought outside by themselves. Now, there are issues around the authenticity of those drugs. There are issues around the fact that it's killing this system that we are trying to develop. So I think we as pharmacists and the people at the head or the leaders of the whole SDRF thing need to look at how to enforce tighter regulations to ensure that this whole idea survives.
The Lagos State government says it has successfully implemented the Sustainable Drug Revolving Scheme across all primary healthcare centers in the state and ready to leverage on transformative advancement that will bring about quality healthcare services for citizens.
Official statistics show the number of African migrants who arrived in Mexico in the year 2023 was 9 times higher than the year before. Now, this is according to figures released by Mexico's Interior Department that showed almost 60,000 migrants arrived from Africa last year, and that's a huge jump from the previous year when 6,500 made the journey. Dana Ladek, the head of mission at the UN's International Organization of Migration in Mexico, says most of these migrants come from Guinea, Angola, Mauritania, Senegal, Nigeria, and Cameroon. The belief is that many of them are hoping to eventually reach the United States, not wishing to build their lives in Mexico. And Morocco's Navy has rescued 141 African migrants on board a boat that experienced difficulties while sailing from Mauritania to the Spanish archipelago, the Canary Islands. The rescue was carried out on Sunday, about 274 kilometers southwest of the city of Dakhla in the Western Sahara Desert. Moroccan Navy says that the migrants had left the Mauritanian coast on the 10th of February. And last year, the Canary Islands received nearly 32,000 migrants, and that's the highest number recorded since 2006. In January, Spanish authorities said they continue to record a surge in migrant arrivals to the islands, with most boats originating from Mauritania. Just before we end the program, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has arrived Abuja after departing Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the venue of the 37th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the African Union. While there, the president actively participated in the 44th Ordinary Session of the Executive Council. The president also held bilateral meetings with other leaders and attended other events on the sidelines of the AU summit. And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.